We don't have a Black Twitter. We don't have an Instagram. We don't have, and again, from D Nice every night, because he was on last night, because after that crashed, everybody went over to Club Quarantine and got the voting thing on with Michelle Obama. She was over there. She was in with Teddy Riley, and then she left when that crashed, and then we followed the First Lady. And I was like, we are literally bolstering and keeping these platforms like hot and juicy, and we don't have our own space. And I'm not saying our own space, but I am saying our own space. So, Drew, can you break down the numbers? Because Drew always has the numbers about how we over-index on social media. One more time,
Absolutely.
please.
I mean, like, you got to think about, Karen, that African Americans, based on most recent census numbers, we make up 14% of the U.S. population. 14% of the population, that's 47.4.5 million folks. 47.5 million Black folks in this country. Now, you got to think about, you break that down, I talk about this all the time, we contribute $1.3 trillion to the economy. But let's just strictly looking at Black folks in tech. 90% of Black folks live in a household that owns a smartphone, 90% of us. The only people who are more smartphone ubiquitous than African Americans are Asian Americans, right? So that means that almost all of us have at least one smartphone. Some of us have two. Some of us have a device for work and have a device for play, right? 19 million of Twitter's 67 million users are African American. That's 28%. So there's 67 million people on Twitter. 19 million of those folks are Black folks. We make up 28% of the folks on Twitter at any given time. Think about that. That means that we are more often than not driving and propelling conversations on Twitter, right?
Yeah, because I was going to say that doesn't even account for what I was talking about yesterday of the trending topics. And again, the trending topics show up for you differently than they may show up for me. But I did USA. I didn't do my actual habits. And of the 15, 10 were some form of the Teddy Riley, some song, some, babyface commentary trended. So we may make up 28%, and it's similar to making up 14% of the population, but driving language, driving fashion, driving entertainment, sports, like we over-index in all of these spaces with our small numbers. So we may only be 28%, but we are.
And 28% of anything is still a huge number, right?
Okay.
Like 28% is over a quarter of people who are on this particular platform. The other thing that you got to think about, too, is African Americans tend to be hyper users, right? That means that we're not only on, but we're engaged and active in a much more dynamic way, right? And so we're such an important aspect that even Twitter breaks out from the African American number, the number of 9.3 million that they feel like are on or self-identify as being a part of the Black Twitter movement, right? So you got to think about that. Like, if African Americans are so important to Twitter that they, in their own numbers, break out Black Twitter from just all the Black folks who are on Twitter. Because everybody who's Black and on Twitter ain't really a thrust of Black Twitter. Does that make sense?
They're not the thrones y'all people or gimme sugar people.
They're not the gimme sugar folks, right? The people who drive more eyeballs to what we watch on television, who drive more eyeballs towards what we look at in streaming, on video, and listen to, all of the above. African Americans disproportionately drive culture. White people say that, as well as U.S. Hispanics say that, right? And so when you look at those numbers and you start to think about what does it mean that Black folks are driving conversation on social media, we're not just driving conversation, but we're driving conversation and for people to then go get more information about the things that we talk about. So we drive movements. We drive people to go out and Google the stuff that we're talking about, whether that is Google the numbers of deaths in a particular city that are African American from COVID versus other things. A lot of the conversation that you see in what we call mainstream media that makes it to the news begins because there's such a huge conversation about it in social spaces. And African Americans have that power to do that. We just don't always lean into it.
So what are your thoughts on this? Because I've been saying this for quite some time, and the frustration is, okay, this is all we have. You know, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have now TikTok, but again, we're putting dollars in other people's pocket when these people are making money, a large amount of money off of our intellectual property, off of our images, off of the way when you talk about meme culture. Most of the memes and all of the GIFs and stuff, or GIFs, whatever they call them, are things that we've made popular by Felicia and all of the, you've seen it over time and on Fleek, and then we stop using it once they start using it. But, when I watch people share different images, I see white people using our images all the time to express themselves on these social media platforms. And I'm like, when are we going to cash in? Because this is something I need us to really not just think about, not just talk about, but there's somebody listening to my voice right now that they are techies, and they know how to code, and they know how to build things, and you ain't got nothing else to do right now because you are quarantined. Here's your challenge: build us a platform where we can have these battles, where we can have a D-Nice. Give us club whatever, because after this is over, I still want to go to club quarantine. I ain't got to dress. I don't have to put on any clothes. I don't have to put on any makeup. I don't have to drive. If you drink, you can drink and not worry about getting pulled over. It is the perfect. And last night was so much fun to be among 500,000 other people in a room where
laughing about the same stuff. Listening
to the
same music.
Tyrese,
a lot of us reminiscing about the same time frame.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
Yes, it was beautiful, and it was community, and it felt good.